Hey loves, it's Britt, and in this video I wanted to talk about the natal aspect Mercury conjunct to Neptune. You guys have been requesting this one a lot, and I'm excited to talk about this aspect. I would call this aspect the magical mind because we have Mercury, which is how we think and communicate, and the mind, being conjunct with Neptune, the planet of illusions, confusion, deception, but also magic and spirituality and tapping into like the oneness of the universe. So, with this conjunction, there's definitely a very strong connection with all things ethereal and spiritual on a very mental level. So, like, they could be grounded in other aspects of their life, but when they're thinking and in, their communication, they're very connected to something otherworldly. And so, how this manifests is often clairvoyance or psychic ability, although they might not necessarily realize that they're doing that. It's different than like other aspects to Neptune where they identify like it is as like a spiritual person. These people don't necessarily think, oh, I'm so spiritual, I'm so psychic. But the impressions they receive, the knowings that they have, are psychic, and they definitely have gifts there. Another way that this manifests is there's a very strong connection to their own mind. Like, these people actually, unlike the square or the opposition or even the quincunx, the people with Mercury conjunct Neptune trust their own impulses and intuitions about things more than those with the hard aspects that are like seeking someone else's perspective and like wanting to adopt others' beliefs. People with Mercury conjunct Neptune are quite all right with like their own perceptions and following their own intuition, even when everybody else is like, that's a bad idea. They're not directly confrontational, so they won't be like, no, I'm not going to listen to you. But they kind of like quietly will just continue on in their own direction that they're going down. And yeah, so it's very interesting. The actual like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, intuition and knowing and trust in their own intuition and like their kind of secretive or hidden way of going about their daily affairs. So there actually is a bit of like secretiveness sometimes with this conjunction where like they don't always say exactly what they're going to do or what they're exactly thinking, or they keep a lot hidden, but they're really good at getting it out of you. Like, they are excellent at like acting as like a truth serum for people, like getting everybody to just spill everything, and then being like a really good listener and really empathetic. Like, they feel for you, they can put themselves inside of your body and cry for you, like when you're crying. Like, they definitely are very empathetic like that, but they can sometimes not really share too much about themselves or what they're doing, and they can get a reputation for even being deceptive or lying. This is one of the negative manifestations of it. Don't get triggered if you have this aspect and you don't lie, you always tell the truth. I like to talk about aspects from all levels. I like to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly, and all of the manifestations of an aspect. So, one of the negative manifestations of this aspect is being deceptive and lying and being secretive. These are all aspects of Neptune that can come out here. And there's not really going to be necessarily like malicious intent, but it's just that the way that the mind is structured, or not structured, because we don't really have a structuring of the mind here with Neptune diffusing it, sometimes they can definitely be deceptive even without realizing it, and it's not something that is not forgiven, because they're generally forgiven, but yeah, definitely they can be a bit evasive, or when you're trying to get a straight answer out of them, that can be something that's difficult too. So I think I said this about the hard aspects, or maybe I just did the square before, but sometimes they can talk a lot and be, some of the most chatty people around, depending on the environment and their level of comfort and, just whatever current they're tapping into. They can definitely be some of the most talkative or chatty people that you know. And then other times they can be more withdrawn, timid, even shy. And it can also be an age thing too. Like when they're younger, they can be more shy and definitely more timid, not going to say a lot, just kind of observant, right? And then as they age and they gain confidence and they gain a little bit of structure and stability in their life, then they can really blossom and end up being, incredibly chatty people. So it's interesting. It's kind of like, who are you going to get? You don't necessarily know. And that's the same with the hard aspects of Mercury and Neptune, is like sometimes you're going to get this very talkative person, and other times you're going to get someone who's more inward, right? So that's definitely something that can manifest as like on a different day, they're kind of communicating differently, right? So you're not going to get a solid form of communication with someone with Mercury conjunct Neptune. They depend a lot on, what they're feeling and what they're sensing that day, and what impressions they're receiving, and also your energy. If your energy is like not open to them, they're not going to let their expressiveness out or their observations out as much. They can sense that. They know when you're judging them or when you're just not in an open frame of mind to hear their ideas. So it can also be dependent on your energy, whether they're going to be that like super chatty person, or if they're going to be more timid and withdrawn. And that's something that they're actually really gifted at, is like sensing where people are at with them. Now, when they're younger, or, with other factors showing that there's maybe some self-worth issues in other places, they sometimes could interpret that people aren't responding to them well, and have a bit of like a paranoia coming. So it's not always that their perceptions are entirely accurate, because if they do have, low self-worth, or, Saturn going in some aspect to this conjunction too, they could interpret sometimes that other people don't like them, or other people don't want to hear from them, or other people are judging them, when that might not really be true. So you have to look at everything. And also, I do think a lot changes like with this conjunction with maturity, because it's hard to handle Neptunian energy on this planet. It's like this planet is not super conducive to someone with a strong Neptune aspect like this, unless like when you're a kid, you're immediately put in the arts, like, acting, singing, music, poetry, writing. Like if that is your focus from day one, you're going to do really well with this conjunction. But as far as like school, in the non-artistic sense, and functioning, in the worldly sense, the 3D realm, and, the day-to-day routine, and, everything that is required in this world, they don't do that well with. And so you could end up seeing someone with this conjunction actually thinking that, they're not intelligent, or they're, just, they can feel off in this world. They can feel insecure about the way that their mind works and the way that they perceive things and the way that they think, and they can definitely lack this groundedness that most people have, and so that can lead to some insecurity, which can happen with this aspect, is, you know, feeling like we're not belonging, we're not really a part of all of this stuff that everybody is doing, and that can sometimes lead to a bit of isolation or feeling of, yeah, being separate. So the remedy, of course, is tapping into the mind's unique giftedness. Like I said, everything artistic is very favored with this conjunction. You're going to see a lot of musicians with this conjunction, or like working in show business, like movies, you know, everything to do with that, movies and TV and acting, and even like producing or filmmaking in any way, photography, the arts basically is where these people can really excel. And actually, even speaking, like public speaking, that might not come naturally at first, but if they allow themselves to really like be who they are without you know, thinking about how other people are looking in at them, which sometimes they can do, you know, they can really tap into a creative zone. People with this conjunction can be some of the most powerful speakers because they're able to articulate feelings, and they're also able to kind of tap into like the collective, like what everybody's feeling, what everybody, you know, is wanting to hear too. So they can end up delivering, you know, very powerful speeches that you really feel, right? You feel it in your heart. So these are some of their unique gifts, and not to say like they can't exist in, you know, a normal job or a, you know, 9 to 5 kind of thing. They absolutely can do anything that they put their mind to. They have a magical mind. They have this powerful mind that really can do anything they want, but it's just certain things don't come as naturally, and early on in life could lead to some insecurity. Like in the early family life, there could have been, like, Mercury can represent a sibling, so there could have been a sibling who was like the golden child or something, and the person with this conjunction was sort of outcasted. Or it could be the reversal, that, you know, maybe the person with this conjunction was like the golden child, and like everybody just put them on a stage and they were just like the star. Or it could have been the opposite. There's something going on from early life that was maybe even very Neptunian. There could have been a parent or a sibling that was like an actor or addicted, or, you know, there's a very open energy toward the early family life as well, like a need to kind of get away from that environment in a way too. With this conjunction, there could be a very open energy where they kind of took on a lot of the upbringing's negative beliefs and energies, and so there might be a need to like move far away from the family upbringing. That's something that you could see with this conjunction too. But there's usually a lot of like compassion and love. There isn't like usually resentment for that upbringing, but there is sometimes a need to like energetically separate from it. So I want to talk a little bit about this magical mind that this aspect really has. So when Mercury and Neptune are conjunct, think of the conjunction as like the new moon aspect, like the new beginning aspect, right? And with this one, you know, you can really birth new forms with your mind. So of course, like I said, this really goes into creativity. This is one of the major gifts of this aspect, is like your personal creativity and being able to really like, yeah, birth new forms of creativity through your own mind. So it's kind of like when you allow yourself to really like write or speak or paint or, you know, any type of art form, you're really going to be able to birth new forms. And this is when you can really see a lot of success with this and actually develop like a solidness in your mind that you might not feel otherwise, is when you actually let yourself run wild with these creative ideas. And yeah, this can really aid your manifestation ability too. You'll see with this aspect, whatever you think about can manifest more than most people, because you have that ability to like bring dreams into reality. Now, when you're also indulging in like fearful thinking and like I said earlier, thinking that comes from low self-worth, thinking everybody's against you or whatever, that can also manifest very quickly. So it's more advisable with this conjunction than other aspects with Mercury to really focus on like, every night when you go to bed or every morning when you wake up, hold the vision of what you desire to manifest, because you're having more power, more capability than most people with this conjunction to bring these forms into reality, because it's like a new beginning between Mercury, the mind, and Neptune, which is like everything connected to everything. So, you want to really, because you're such a sponge, because you're such an open energy field, and because your thoughts have power, you want to really like cultivate inner worlds, that are pleasurable to you. Even going to sleep with like a meditation on or a hypnosis on or something to do with water, even like listening to the ocean when you go to sleep or when you wake up, and like just allowing that peace to permeate your being is something that'll be really helpful for, some of the negatives of this conjunction, which could be, just too much going on in the mind, right? Like we're just everywhere at once, and it's hard to discern, what is really for me, right? What is really for me to deal with in this day or this lifetime? That's a really good affirmation actually for this conjunction, is like, okay, I'm receiving all these impressions and all these downloads and all these different thoughts and energies, and what is really for me to deal with in this lifetime? What is really for my highest good and my purpose here? And that can really help you cultivate like the focus required to really bring these dreams into reality, which you do have the potential for. But unfortunately, sometimes with this conjunction, the mind is just too open, the energy is just too open, that you can be like the jack of all trades, right? Master of none, or it could even disintegrate into lower levels of like addictions. If you're open to that reality, there can be escapism here, and that's not the best route to go with this conjunction. That's like a waste of its beautiful potential. And, if you do go that way, it'll be hard to kind of trick your mind out of it, because your mind will find a way that's like, well, this isn't a problem. This is all good, it's not as open to like other people's advice, like I said, as some of the other aspects. Like when people tell you, well, hey, you got a problem, you'll be like, well, no, I don't. So yeah, it's wise to avoid all types of like addictive behaviors with this conjunction. You don't want anything to take away from the profound creativity and magic that you are capable of with this one. And I know that sometimes it feels like this world is not your place, this world is too harsh for you, but you're meant to bring these new forms into this reality. You're meant to be that compassionate ear that allows people to open up and blossom into their highest timeline and highest good. And yeah, you're meant to be this way. You're meant to hold this energy, this frequency, and you're perfect as you are. And yeah, there's many gifts of this conjunction, even though there's many difficulties as well. I do think that this is a sign of like someone who's even pursued like spiritual awakening in a previous lifetime would be given this conjunction, because it's like all of these realms, even astrology, all of these things, psychology, it's all very natural to you, right? Like you're kind of like the natural spiritualist. It's not something you have to really work on. It's something that's just very natural to you. So I think there could be spiritual development coming from previous lifetimes with this one. So yeah, I'd love to know your experience of this conjunction. If you have it in your natal chart, or you know someone, you're with someone, I'd love to know how this has been for you. And yeah, thank you for the requests, you guys. Keep them coming, and we'll talk soon. Bye.